Well, I really haven't had time to put in much thought about this whole thing.
I remember the winter of 1968 like it was yesterday. The sky over Telluride, Colorado was lost in a blanket of white fog, and the trucks from the True Grit crew lined up one after another on the ice-covered mountain road. I had just turned 37, the age Hollywood calls the one caught between a dream and a failure, and John Wayne was 61, the immortal icon of Western cinema, the man America saw as the embodiment of courage, patriotism, and steadfast authority. I was Robert Duvall then, a young actor trying to find my voice after To Kill a Mockingbird, believing in real acting, in fear, in rage, and in the kind of silence that could say more than 1,000 lines. John Wayne didn't share my philosophy. He believed in projecting strength, in presence over introspection, in a quiet, commanding authority. The first morning I met him on set, Wayne walked in wearing a thick leather coat, holding a coffee cup, moving slowly but with undeniable authority. The entire crew fell silent. He looked at me with a gaze that could make any young actor falter. "You, Duvall," he said. "I heard you like to be one of those artsy actors." I replied simply, "I just like the truth, sir. In the West, the truth is who survives." He nodded once and walked off, and I knew immediately there would be tension, a collision of two different approaches to life and work that would define the weeks ahead. Early tensions on set. The tension between John Wayne and me was apparent almost immediately, as if two different worlds of acting had collided on the same set. He approached his work with the precision, discipline, and certainty that had defined decades of legendary performances, while I relied on instinct and emotion, striving to find truth in every moment. During the second week of filming True Grit, a horseback scene crossing the Arkansas River crystallized our differences. The wind cut through our coats, the river moving relentlessly beneath the horses, and the director, Henry Hathaway, called for action. Wayne moved ahead with controlled efficiency, while I responded with instinctive reactions to the environment and the moment. After the first take, he turned sharply, speaking words that were meant to guide, but felt like a subtle assertion of authority. From that moment, every scene became a silent negotiation, a test of endurance, patience, and mutual respect. We rarely spoke directly about the differences, but the dynamic of two approaches, stoic mastery versus emotional authenticity, defined the filming process in ways that were invisible to the crew yet palpable to both of us. The struggle for authenticity filming in Ouray, Colorado, in early 1969 brought its own set of challenges. The mountains were blanketed in snow, the cold biting through every layer of clothing, and the crew worked under tents and temporary shelters. Wayne carried the aura of his legendary career everywhere he went, a presence both comforting and imposing, while I approached each scene as a living moment, requiring listening, observation, and responsive engagement. Our scene, a confrontation between Ned Pepper and Rooster Cogburn, was simple in concept but infinitely complex in execution because it became a study in contrasting philosophies. Wayne adhered to precision and timing, while I sought naturalism and reaction, and each take highlighted our differing priorities. Moments of frustration occasionally surfaced, small collisions of ego and expectation, yet there was an underlying acknowledgement of each other's skill. The struggle was never about animosity, it was about reconciling two interpretations of the Western ethos, two understandings of honor, courage, and human behavior within the same frame. Confrontation and reflection. One night in OA, during a particularly challenging shoot, the tension reached a peak. Wayne appeared tired and carrying a drink rather than the usual coffee, while a prop bullet narrowly missed me in a complex sequence. I approached him carefully, my voice steady despite the adrenaline still rushing through me, and said, "I only want to act truthfully." He looked at me with a quiet intensity, not angry, but weighted with decades of expectation and lived experience. There was no shouting match, no overt conflict, only a silent acknowledgement of the boundaries between two approaches to craft. That moment crystallized the reality that our differences were not personal, but philosophical. Both of us were committed to excellence, but the means we used to achieve it diverged. It was a lesson in patience, in recognizing the humanity behind the legend, and in understanding that the same passion for performance could manifest in vastly different ways. The legacy of Silence Paramount and Hathaway worked to maintain harmony, reminding us of the responsibility we bore to the crew, the audience, and the story itself. Gradually, I began to see Wayne as a man rather than a symbol, a person balancing public expectation with personal pride. And vulnerability. The premiere of True Grit in June 1969 was a critical success, culminating in Wayne receiving the Oscar for his performance. Backstage, he spoke quietly, acknowledging my presence and effort without fanfare. The audience celebrated one story, but behind the cameras, a different narrative unfolded, one of quiet negotiation, understanding, and survival of human interaction in a highly pressured environment. That experience taught me early lessons about professional respect, about holding space for others, and about the complexity of collaboration under the spotlight. A public challenge. 2 years later, Wayne appeared on The Dick Cavett Show and reflected on acting, life, and the Western genre, making indirect comments about the younger generation of actors. While the remarks initially stung, I understood that public perception often oversimplifies relationships and motivations. Rather than react defensively, I chose silence, allowing the experience to fuel my growth rather than diminish it. I learned that silence, when coupled with reflection, can serve as a powerful form of expression. It preserves dignity, maintains focus on one's own craft, and allows the energy of criticism to be transformed into motivation. The encounter became a lesson in separating external commentary from personal integrity and recognizing the value of inner validation over public affirmation. Rediscovering purpose. After stepping away from Hollywood for a period, I returned to the stage in New York, performing works such as A View from the Bridge and The Cherry Orchard. Theater offered a refreshing simplicity and immediacy that reminded me why I became an actor, to explore truth, human complexity, and vulnerability. Each performance became an opportunity to refine my understanding of character and story, focusing on connection rather than visibility. The stage offered an intimacy with the audience, an unmediated exchange of emotion and presence, which contrasted sharply with the Hollywood set. In this environment, Wayne's shadow shifted from a source of tension to a benchmark, a reminder of resilience and the endurance required to hold one's principles amidst differing artistic philosophies. Tender Mercies, Forgiveness Through Art. In 1982, I was offered a role in Tender Mercies, portraying Max Sludge, a washed-up country singer searching for redemption, and it felt like more than just a role. It felt like an invitation to confront the lingering questions, regrets, and unresolved tension that had accumulated over decades of both professional and personal experience. The opportunity to step into Max's shoes allowed me to engage with vulnerability, humility, and the delicate art of forgiveness in a way that was profoundly reflective, offering a chance to process emotions that had long remained unspoken. In approaching the character, I realized that Max's struggles, his pride, his mistakes, his quiet yearning for reconciliation, mirrored facets of my own journey, the moments when ego, miscommunication, and unacknowledged friction had shaped my relationships and left me grappling with how to be both honest and compassionate in an often demanding and unforgiving profession. Playing Max Sludge was not about performing a story on a screen, it was about creating a space to confront the complexity of human imperfection, to explore reconciliation, and to understand that true courage often involves facing the truths we have long avoided, both in ourselves and in others. The art of reconciliation. The first scene I filmed in Tender Mercies remains etched in my memory. Max kneeling quietly in a small sunlit church, trembling with a combination of fear, grief, and longing, praying in a way that seemed to speak to a lifetime of missteps. In that moment, the emotional weight extended beyond the script or the character. It was infused with the lessons of my own life, the tensions and misunderstandings that had followed me from previous sets and personal encounters, and the broader truths I had come to recognize about human connection. On set, I felt the crew sensing the subtle layers of performance that were as much about reconciliation as about acting. And it struck me how performance could serve as a medium for personal healing. Through Max, I was able to reflect on past conflicts, including those with John Wayne during True Grit, not as antagonistic confrontations, but as opportunities to understand different approaches to art, discipline, and collaboration. The process of inhabiting Max's vulnerability allowed me to translate years of silent negotiation, stubborn pride, and restrained emotion into a performance that was both truthful and cathartic. Acting, in this instance, became a bridge between past and present, a method to explore empathy and forgiveness both on the screen and within myself. Recognition and reflection. When Tender Mercies premiered in March 1983, the response was both critical and deeply personal. Reviewers praised the authenticity of the performance, noting the quiet power of a man who carried regret, yet discovered a way to live with dignity and humility. For me, the acclaim was less about awards or recognition and more about the confirmation that art could indeed serve as a vessel for reflection and reconciliation. Through Max Sledge, I was able to acknowledge past difficulties, appreciate the human complexity of collaborators like John Wayne, and confront my own tendencies toward rigidity and defensiveness. It was an exercise in seeing the humanity in others and in myself simultaneously. Recognition in this context became validation not only of craft but of introspection, the realization that performance could transform unspoken lessons into palpable emotion, that a character could embody decades of the reflection, and that audiences could experience, perhaps unknowingly, the same reconciliation that I was processing privately. It was a reminder that the greatest validation is often internal, knowing that one has approached work with honesty, empathy, and integrity, rather than seeking applause or comparison. The weight of legacy. Looking back now, I can see clearly that any tension with Wayne was never born of malice, nor was it indicative of a personal failing. Rather, it was the natural result of two artists, deeply committed and operating under very different principles, attempting to navigate the same creative space. John Wayne's approach was characterized by stoicism, discipline, and a prideful endurance honed over decades of leading men in cinema, while my own practice leaned toward emotional transparency, improvisational honesty, and responsiveness to nuance. Both approaches demanded rigorous focus and unwavering commitment, and each carried its own vulnerabilities and pressures. Over the years, I have come to embrace the subtleties. There was no absolute right or wrong way to approach the work, and every difference contained lessons if one was willing to observe, listen, and reflect. The legacy of those experiences has become a reminder that human interactions, especially in creative collaborations, are rarely simple or binary. They require patience, empathy, and the capacity to recognize the dignity and intention in others' choices, even when they differ from our own. Lessons of a lifetime. Now, living a quiet life in Virginia with my wife Luciana, surrounded by nature and shaped by deliberate, conscious choices, I recognize that much of what I learned through these experiences extends far beyond acting. My work with young performers focuses on presence, authenticity, listening, and the often underestimated power of silence. I teach them that acting is not about applause or external validation. It is about connection, honesty, and inhabiting the human experience fully. The lessons I absorbed from conflicts and collaborations, both harmonious and tense, inform every interaction and teaching moment. I emphasize that courage is not always loud or heroic. It can be quiet, reflective, and rooted in consistency of character. Understanding is rarely declared. It is earned through observation, patience, and engagement. Forgiveness is not a momentary choice, but a lifelong practice cultivated through self-awareness, empathy, and reflection. Through my own encounters, I have come to see that acting can be a mirror to life itself, an opportunity to witness, understand, and navigate complexity with honesty and grace. Embracing truth over image. Each morning, as I sit on the porch with coffee, watching the horses graze, I'm reminded of the impermanence of fame and the enduring value of authenticity. Accolades and recognition fade quickly, but integrity, empathy, and the quiet consistency of being true to oneself endure. John Wayne, even at the height of his legend, was a human being with pride, vulnerabilities, and a commitment to his craft. Recognizing the humanity in others, particularly those who seem larger than life, allows for a depth of empathy that extends beyond the superficialities of image or reputation. It has taken years to internalize that understanding the full scope of another person's choices, strengths, and limitations enriches not only professional relationships but personal growth. Truth and integrity, I have learned, are cumulative. They are the result of daily choices, reflection, and a willingness to honor both oneself and those around us, regardless of external pressures or expectations. Passing on the lessons. I share these experiences with students as a way to instill values that often remain invisible in the rush of performance culture: authenticity over artifice, courage over bravado, and compassion over competition. I tell them the story of John Wayne not as a tale of conflict, but as a lesson in working with differing perspectives, navigating professional environments with respect, and understanding the humanity that underlies every interaction. Acting is never about impressing an audience or colleagues. It is about inhabiting a character fully, recognizing the nuances of human experience, and reflecting that truth convincingly. These lessons are simple yet profound. They teach emerging artists that subtlety, patience, and empathetic engagement often outweigh spectacle, and that reconciliation, understanding, and the cultivation of integrity are among the most enduring tools in both life and art. By passing on these lessons, I hope to equip the next generation with the ability to navigate creative tension gracefully and to approach their craft and collaborators with thoughtful presence. A life reclaimed. Looking back across decades of film, stage, and reflection, I recognize that an actor's ultimate legacy is never determined by box office numbers, awards, or public adulation. It is measured by honesty in the work, respect for collaborators, and the willingness to learn from both collaboration and conflict. I have stopped measuring myself against others, including Wayne or any external benchmark. Instead, I measure my life by the capacity to live truthfully, to forgive generously, and to remain receptive to the lessons offered in every encounter, whether on set, in the classroom, or in daily life. In reclaiming my own narrative, I understand that each choice, each act of reflection, and each deliberate engagement with integrity contributes more meaningfully to the story of one's life than any accolade could. By prioritizing human connection, self-awareness, and ethical engagement, I have found a way to shape my existence according to my own principles rather than external expectation. Final reflections. At 94, reflecting on the journey from the tension and challenges of true grit to the quiet triumph and reconciliation of tender mercies, I feel a profound sense of gratitude and understanding. Every disagreement, every moment of friction, and every silent lesson has contributed to the person I have become, not only as an actor, but as a human being navigating life. Resentment has been replaced by empathy, and conflict has transformed into insight and personal growth. I have learned that living truthfully requires patience, humility, courage, and the willingness to recognize complexity both within oneself and in others. In every performance, every class I teach, and every sunrise I witness on the Virginia farm, I see the continuity of a life deliberately lived with integrity, empathy, and openness to understanding. Each moment reinforces that the deepest fulfillment comes not from public recognition, but from embodying authenticity, cultivating empathy, and embracing the enduring human spirit that connects us all.